Hello there, beautiful people. I'm Tracy Brigden, and this is the Contrast Project Lounge podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking with a clinical expert in the field of medical cannabis, Mr. Daniel Locke from Jacksonville, Florida. Are you guys ready for this? Let's do it. I'd like to welcome Mr. Daniel Locke to the podcast today. Daniel, good friend, how are you doing, my man?
I'm wonderful, Tracy. Thank you so much for having me again. I always look forward to these opportunity to be on this really cool podcast. And congratulations to everything you've done, sir. I applaud you.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and jump right in with both feet here. You are first and foremost, when it comes to medical marijuana, you are a patient advocate.
Absolutely, yes, sir. Yeah, listen, everything that I do on a daily basis, the what we have to do first, if you're really focusing on what we are as a medicinal cannabis state, is patient advocacy. And
Right.
that goes to having access, that goes to affordability. There are a lot of things that we as patient advocates are trying to get put into place.
Right. And there are some common misconceptions out there about not only the medical marijuana itself, but obtaining, the card in the state of Florida, and
Mhm.
some of the
Yeah.
steps they go through, and the fact that it is science based, evidence based medicine.
Yeah. Yeah. And Tracy, if I might back up and give you a little history, that's where
Hmm.
as you know, let me give a little shout out to, I will be uh, one of the few graduates from a medical cannabis science and therapeutics master's program. I was blessed to be accepted, and one of the things first and foremost, I'm going to encourage everybody out there that's listening or tuning in to look into the program. If it works for you, the more of us that know the science, the more of
Hmm.
us uh, can advocate for be patient advocates as well. So one of the things that we were taught from the start, when with this journey of medical cannabis and understanding the science of it, one thing we were taught was the history. Okay, so let me start, if you don't mind, with a little bit of brief
Yeah.
history.
Yeah.
There
Go
was
ahead.
a gentleman. First of all, the science of cannabis. Cannabis has been known to be used as a medicine for over 5,000 years. Okay, I won't break it all down and how it ended up getting in Europe. There's some really neat history behind it. But when we started prohibition on cannabis in the 1930s, there was a gentleman by the name of Harry Anslinger. He was probably the grandfather of prohibition, and he's the one who introduced the word marijuana. But the way he introduced it was so that it would be somewhat of a racist. Fear and hate has sold for many generations in this country,
Right.
and Harry started out calling it marijuana, okay, to make it sound Latino, okay, and then he went on to do a lot of most of the science was to try to prove harm, against cannabis. So the first thing that we've done to try to professionalize the industry is we use the C word. We call it cannabis, and we call it
Right.
medicine, and that's what it is. It's cannabis and it's medicine. So, Onslinger started out, teaching people how to utilize it as prohibition. Fast forward, you certainly remember when Nixon started his war on drugs.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So he carried it on. And who did a fabulous job in my generation was Nancy Reagan. the Just Say No movement and the Dare and all those things. So let's
Right.
if we understand the history of why the medicine of cannabis got pushed to the side, it was because it was vilified, and we all know that the where we stand today, and where people feel on the topic, but yeah, so we try to say the word cannabis. Okay, I'm trying
Yeah.
to leave the whole M word out because it was designed to be a racist term, and most people are not aware of
Right.
it.
Right.
Anyway, I'll give you a chance to ask questions. I don't want to ramble on for you.
No, 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 no. Uh, when we talk
Yeah.
about evidence based medicine, what role does evidence based
Uh-huh.
medicine play in the certification process at Compassionate Alternative Care?
Okay, well, let me just tell you what the industry's been like, and listen, I'm so glad that it's available for patients, and unfortunately, we all have our own endocannabinoid system, so patients, sometimes have to learn on their own, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm guilty, so let me just say, let me use me. The first 5 years I was in this industry, I was great to be able to get patient feedback and learn what was working for patients, and so that knowledge was I wouldn't replace it for anything. Okay,
Right.
but I was always, most of my knowledge was coming from dispensary reps, and as it turns out, a whole bunch of it was marketing stuff. Okay, that
Mm-hmm.
made the sound kind of medicinal, but much of it is more of marketing materials, and it's not a knock on them. Okay, my program started in 2019. It's the only master's program in the nation. They don't teach
Wow.
anything in med school. Okay, so here's what happens: you come in, you have a qualifying condition because the doctor's not allowed to diagnose you and issue you the card. We hand you to the doctor. Okay, and then the doctor sends you to the dispensary, and now you got a 25-year-old cat, not knocking the 25-year-old gut, and they mean well, but most of them had just a handful of days of training, and they now have just become your doctor. Okay, once I started learning the science behind cannabis and could actually do research, remember, we're in the school of pharmacy. Okay, so
Right.
you know how drugs are developed,
Mm-hmm.
with single blind studies, double blind studies. So what we've been taught to do is go into evidence based websites and decipher different studies. Okay, and there's
Right.
peer reviews all the way up, and if you can visualize a pyramid, the top of the pyramid is where they've taken a bunch of reviews and they've studied them, and then the science is there. So there's now many things that it says, when you do research, hey, more science needs to be done. Okay.
Yes.
Now, one of the advantages that just recently happened, I'll make you guys aware of. Everybody's aware of the Schedule 1. Okay, that cannabis is in the Schedule 1, right? Well,
Right.
the NATA, the World Health Organization, back in 2020, I don't think it. I don't think it. I don't think it made the news too much because we were all trying to worry about how to stay alive with COVID. Okay. But the
Yes.
World Health
Yes.
Organization, their version of a Schedule 1 cannabis was what's Schedule 4, which basically meant has no medicinal purposes and can, be actually harmful. Okay. Well, when they removed that worldwide, it's allowed other countries to do more research. So since 2020, and it's also, there were a lot of countries that would not introduce medical cannabis programs simply because they would
Hmm.
use the whole it's illegal deal. So,
Right. Right.
and we were also the ones, by the way, who helped get it put on Schedule 4. The Americans did that. So our country got it put there. World leaders have removed it. Okay, and now we're still stuck with Schedule 1. Okay, and one of the things that advocates do, and before I forget, if you ever want to kind of become a patient advocate and really learn the science behind, there's a group called Americans for Safe Access, asa.org. And as I read down there, as a matter of fact, the executive director, Debbie, just taught the last class I was in school and the last semester, and she's amazing. And they've been doing this fight for years, over 21 years. Do you remember back in the days, Tracy, when uh, California first started medical cannabis, and the
Oh
DEA
yeah.
were raiding the people and okay
Yep.
and putting
Yep.
doctors in jail? Remember those
Right.
days? Okay,
Right. Right.
ASA is basically their organization is responsible for where we are today, being able to use medical cannabis. And here's what they did: they would go in and arrest doctors who were writing, legal recommendations because the state said it was legal
Right.
recommendations for patients to obtain cannabis. Okay, so that doctor would get arrested. Okay, and then the defense was not, because remember, you're going to federal court now. The defense was not even allowed to mention in the court case that this guy does medical cannabis. So
Huh.
imagine going to court trying to defend yourself, right? So what ended up happening is doctors would plea out. It became very difficult to get physicians to buy in and do it. Well, finally a doctor, and his name escapes me right now. I do apologize. Finally, a doctor in California had the guts to say, you know what? Let's take this to trial. Okay, gets
Mm-hmm.
into trial, and I might butcher the details a little bit on this story, but he gets through the trial and, of course, gets found guilty because his defense was not allowed to mention the fact that, oh, by the way, he's doing this for people with AIDS. He's doing this for people with cancer. These are
Right.
these are qualifying conditions. Okay, so he
Yeah.
loses the case, and then the jury comes out. ASA had formed a big group of folks, and the jury learned this guy was an actual, medical cannabis physician, and forced the courts to change its ruling. So
Hmm.
that was a huge case in our history of where medical cannabis and medical cannabis advocacy has taken us. So I like to make sure that those people understand where it came and where we are now, because we in Florida, we come along 20 years later. Okay,
Yeah.
we don't necessarily comprehend the battles that were out there and the struggles that were going on. We couldn't even comprehend 20 years ago having medical cannabis, right?
Right. 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 Right.
So,
It's something else.
yeah,
Something
sorry.
else. No. No.
Yeah.
Um. Um. How do you address the concerns? Like you said, there's pre-existing conditions that people, and there's a list of them available, and
Yes,
I'll
sir.
provide links. I'll
Correct.
provide links in the blog post for you too. But
Okay,
there's
great.
also, how do you address as an advocate, as a patient advocate, how do you
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
address these concerns that people have about the science behind the medicine, first of all,
Uh-huh.
and some of their,
Right.
you know their some of their misconceptions about the entire process.
Yeah. Well, I just give them facts. I give them research.
Mm-hmm.
I walk them through the process. Like, and let me just share. Some of the people come. I would probably say 80% of patients have an anxiety diagnosis. Okay, many of them come for chronic pain, and of course we get cancer patients and what have you. But I would say 80% are definitely have anxiety, and some have anxiety with the chronic pain. The two go hand in hand together. Okay,
Right.
so what
Right.
I try patients where they are. Okay, my favorite patient and my most successful patient is the one that comes in and says, "I've never used cannabis a day in my life. I'm 78 years old. I've had rheumatoid arthritis for over 40 years. I don't take pain medication anymore because it quit working. So I just live in constant horrific pain." Okay.
Right.
So this particular patient, which happens to be pretty close to me, it's my mom. She doesn't mind me sharing. Um, what we did is we started her with a 50-50 tincture. Okay, she's got COPD and she doesn't want to inhale anything. And certainly, I'm not going to encourage anybody to inhale anything. So we meet the patient where they are. All right. So what she does is, and then I'll tell you the first time she did it, I told her, I said, now listen, the starting range, she had a 50-50, which means it's half CBD, half THC. Okay. The biggest problem is people sleep on the CBD. The CBD combined with the THC is what creates the entourage effect, which actually fights the chronic pain. Just smoking THC or utilizing THC or eating an edible, you're masking the chronic pain. You're not necessarily fighting the chronic pain. Okay.
Gotcha.
So for my mom, what she did is the first night, I said, now listen, this stuff, it's going to take, first thing you do is you put a walker beside your bed. Okay. God forbid you have to get up in the middle of the night, you have to use the restroom and you're feeling a little bit loopy. That's the first thing you're going to do. Okay. Promise me.
Makes
That's
sense.
what you're going to do.
Sense.
So we agreed to that. We got that part out of the way first. So and I said, you can start off with that tonight and then you can titrate up. The starting point is 2.5 milligrams. Okay. So what she did, she said she laid there. And by the way, it happened that I got her started at a time when she was waiting for her medicine to come in the mail as a senior citizen. She's waiting for her rheumatoid arthritis medicine in the mail. So she was suffering tremendously. So she takes the 2.5 milligrams, 10 o'clock. She said about midnight, is her word. She said, I was feeling a little bit better, but, I wasn't feeling great. So I took another 2.5 milligrams 2 hours later. And she said, I literally could feel the pain leaving my body. She said, and I went to sleep, and it's the first time I've slept in 2 weeks, and I'll never be without this stuff again. Now, I can tell you,
that?
We don't have enough time on this podcast. I could tell you 1,000 of those type stories. But then I also have the person who says, listen, I've been self-medicating for years, okay? But I want to do it the right way now, okay? And I had this conversation with a doctor the other day, and he said, well, you know that nobody needs flour. It's not even needed. And I said, well, we're here to kind of help the patients. Okay. So if we can meet them where they are, okay, and make them be comfortable, then they're going to have some success. So what I tell that patient is that has chronic pain, okay, here's what you do. Take some CBD, and and I don't care where you buy, none of them pay me anything, but Vitacan keeps a 20-to-1 ratio, 20 part CBD, 1 part THC. Okay. And I'll encourage them, okay, go and do a dose in the morning, do a dose at night. Now you've got the CBD in your system. When you decide to smoke your flower, whether you roll a joint or whatever you do, okay, you're already going to have the CBD in your system. Now you've got the THC added. Now you've got the entourage effect. Now you're fighting the chronic pain. Okay. So those are some scientific things that most, unfortunately, the industry hasn't caught up with this scientific knowledge. And I don't blame them because it's not been available. Okay.
Right.
Like I said, I'm in the first program that ever existed. I'll be one of 600 people in the nation come spring who has a master's in cannabis. Not bragging. I'm just telling you, I want more of us. We need more of us. Okay. There's also some things scientifically that, we need to change within our own state. And that's why I recommended that at ASA.org. Okay. You can look at all the different states, and we're actually graded. Florida right now is a D+.
I'd like to thank all my friends, fans, and followers on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. All of you. And those of you who are not already following us, please like, share, comment. And on the YouTube channel, like, share, comment, and smash the subscribe button so that you get all the new episodes. Don't forget to ring that bell. You get notifications. And listen, once again, I want to thank each and every single one of you. Your support means the world to me, and I certainly do appreciate it. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, in my closing thoughts, First of all, I want to apologize for the abrupt ending on our interview, my interview with Mr. Daniel Locke. Transparency moment here. We had connection loss. Daniel has agreed to appear on the show again, and by the way, has been on this podcast several times. When it comes to, just as we were saying in the interview, being an advocate for patients who are in chronic pain or, have pre-existing conditions that qualify in the state of Florida to obtain a medical cannabis card, I definitely am pro medical cannabis. An advocate in my own right, you might say. Daniel being the local expert in Northeast Florida. He runs compassionate alternative care in Jacksonville. I'll provide you links in the descriptions and in the comments. But advocacy for getting people that respond to the medication. I agreed. It's not for everyone, and not everyone wants to even try it. However, those that have used it for pre-existing conditions, they swear by it. It has changed their lives, reduced their pain. I know people that take medical cannabis to help with their seizure activity and have noted personally to me that they have had significant decrease in the number of seizures that they have. So, that being said, being an advocate for it, looking up, it is evidence-based. There is science behind it, and if you're looking into it yourself, if you're not already into it, if you're looking into it, please look up the information. I'll provide some links in the description here for you. There's the evidence is there. It's been around for years, and they're making strides forward in the United States, and soon enough we will have it available to all the citizens of the United States. I sure hope so. As I always say at the end of every podcast, in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time, peace.